I'm a scarf vendor in Marrakesh, sitting behind stacks of pashmina scarves in the Medina, when an American woman walks up to my stall. She picks up a blue scarf, checks the tag showing 400 dirhams, and says she'll take it. I tell her the price, expecting the usual back and forth that makes up my entire day. She pulls out exact change and tries to hand it to me. I'm confused because she hasn't even started negotiating, so I tell her again. She looks irritated and says, I already said I'll buy it. The tag says 400, so that's what I'm paying. This is how commerce works. You set a price, I agree or I don't. I try explaining that the tag price is just a starting point, that everyone negotiates here. She cuts me off, insisting she's read about predatory bargaining cultures, and refuses to participate in what she calls psychological manipulation tactics. She says in America, transparent pricing is a sign of an advanced economy, and that haggling is what happens in places that haven't modernized their retail infrastructure. She pays the full 400, takes the scarf, and leaves. The Moroccan family at the next stall stares at me like I've just insulted her ancestors. I made 4 times my usual profit, but I feel terrible because she thinks she's taught me some kind of lesson about modern capitalism. A Swiss tourist walks up minutes later, picks up an identical scarf, and we settle on 120 dirhams after 10 minutes of friendly negotiation. He leaves smiling, I'm happy with the sale, and everything feels normal again. The American woman walks past going the opposite direction, sees the Swiss guy with his scarf, and stops dead. She demands to know what he paid. He tells her 120. She turns red, marches back to my stall, and demands a refund of 280 dirhams because I discriminated against her nationality. I try explaining that she refused to negotiate, but she's already calling it fraud. She threatens to report me to the Moroccan Tourism Board for running a 2-tier pricing scam. Her husband finally drags her away while she shouts that she's documenting everything for TripAdvisor. The Swiss guy is still standing there, utterly baffled, asking me if Americans just don't understand how markets work. I'm a street artist in Rome, selling watercolor paintings near Piazza Navona, when an American couple stops to look at my work. The husband picks up a painting of the Colosseum and asks the price. I tell him 80 euros. He nods, pulls out his wallet, and starts counting bills. His wife stops him and says, "Wait, you're supposed to offer less." He looks confused. She explains that her yoga instructor told her Europeans always inflate prices for tourists, and that offering 40% of the asking price is just how it works here. I'm still processing this when she turns to me and announces, "We'll give you 32 euros. I tell her the price is firm at 80, that I don't negotiate on artwork. She smirks like she's caught me in a trap. She says that by refusing to negotiate, I've proven I know the price is inflated, because any honest seller would accept reasonable negotiation. Her husband looks embarrassed. I explain that Italy has fixed prices in most places, that this isn't Morocco, that I'm an artist selling signed work. She dismisses this, saying her yoga instructor spent 2 weeks in Spain once and haggled for everything. She insists Spain and Italy are basically the same culture, and that I'm exploiting tourists who don't know the system. They walk away. The husband glances back apologetically. An Italian couple buys the painting 10 minutes later for 80 euros without question. I work the ticket counter at a thermal bath complex in Reykjavik when an American man approaches the window. Our admission is 8,900 ISK, clearly posted on the board behind me in 4 languages. He slides a 5,000 ISK note across the counter and says, "I'll give you 5,000 for entry. Cash right now." I tell him the price is 8,900, no exceptions. He leans in and says, "Come on, I'm a business owner back home. I know how pricing works. You've built in a negotiation margin." Everyone does. That 8,900 is probably your walk-in sucker price for tourists who don't know better. I explain we're a government-regulated facility with standardized pricing, that Iceland doesn't have haggling culture, that our prices are filed with tourism authorities. He interrupts, saying that government regulation is exactly why prices are inflated, because bureaucracy creates inefficiency, and that free market negotiation would save both of us time. He pulls out his phone and shows me an article about dynamic pricing strategies in Nordic markets that mentions how some Oslo hotels negotiate corporate rate. He says this proves Iceland must have similar practices. I tell him we're not a hotel and Oslo isn't in Iceland. He says Nordic countries are all basically the same economically. The line behind him now has 12 people. He finally pays full price but takes a photo of my name tag, saying he's filing a complaint about our rigid, anti-consumer pricing policies. I manage a bakery in Zurich when an American woman comes in and orders a Zopf bread. The price is 6.80 Swiss franc. She looks at the price tag and says, "That seems high. What if I buy 2? Can you do 10 francs for both?" I tell her the price is fixed, that we don't negotiate. She looks genuinely offended. She explains that volume discounts are a fundamental principle of efficient markets, and that any business not offering bulk pricing is leaving money on the table. I explain that Swiss retail culture operates on fixed transparent pricing, that the price marked is the price charged, and that negotiating in stores is considered inappropriate. She counters that Switzerland being a banking center means Swiss people must understand negotiation better than anyone, since banking is all about deals and terms. She says her husband works in finance in Connecticut and that Swiss bankers are legendary negotiators, so clearly I'm confused about my own culture. She pulls out her phone and shows me a Wikipedia article about Swiss banking that mentions wealth management negotiations. She says this proves Swiss culture is built on bargaining. I'm Swiss and I'm standing in my family's bakery that's used the same pricing for 30 years. She eventually pays 6.80 but tells me I'm missing the fundamentals of retail psychology. I'm a taxi driver in Copenhagen when an American tourist gets in and asks to go to Nyhavn. I start the meter, which is legally required. He immediately tells me to turn it off. I explain the meter is mandatory for all licensed taxis in Denmark. He says he doesn't do meters because they're scams, that he's been in Istanbul and Bangkok where real negotiation happens, and that he wants to agree on a price up front. I tell him Denmark has fixed meter rates set by regulation, that negotiating taxi fares is illegal here, and that I could lose my license. He argues that meters are designed to exploit tourists who don't know the actual distance, and that honest drivers would prefer agreeing on a fair price beforehand. He says in America, even New York City taxis sometimes negotiate flat rates to airports, so Denmark must have similar exceptions. I explain Denmark isn't New York, that our taxi laws are different, that the meter protects both of us. He suggests 100 kroner for the trip. I tell him the meter will be around 150 for that distance. He insists 100 is fair and that I'm proving his point about meter scams by already trying to upsell him. He finally agrees when I threaten to cancel the ride. The meter ends at 148 kroner. He hands me exactly 100, saying that was our agreement. I have to explain that nothing was agreed, that the meter is the price, and that this is Denmark. He leaves a 1-star review saying Danish taxis are a tourist trap with archaic pricing systems. I own a small restaurant in Osaka when an American couple comes in for dinner. They order ramen, gyoza, and beer. The bill comes to 3,400 yen. The husband looks at the receipt and says, "Okay, but what's your real price?" I'm confused, so I point to the itemized bill. He clarifies that he means the price after negotiation. I explain that restaurant prices in Japan are fixed. He seems stunned. He tells me he read online that Osaka is famous for having a merchant culture where people love to haggle, and that Osakans are known throughout Japan as shrewd negotiators. I confirm that historically, yes, Osaka had merchant traditions, but that applied to wholesale trade centuries ago, not to restaurant meals in 2024. He insists his blog research said Osakans haggle over everything, and that refusing to negotiate means I'm not a real Osakan. He offers 2,800 yen. I tell him the price is 3,400. He argues that any legitimate business should be willing to discuss pricing, especially since we're near closing time and the food is already made. His wife looks mortified. He pulls up a Japan travel blog on his phone that mentions Osaka's commercial history and claims this proves negotiation is in our blood. I'm third-generation Osakan, and I've never haggled for a restaurant meal in my life. They eventually pay full price. He leaves saying he's disappointed that Osaka has lost its authentic culture. I work at a restaurant counter in Singapore's Maxwell Food Center when an American woman orders chicken rice. The price is $4.50, displayed on a large sign. She hands me $3 and says that's her offer. I tell her the price is $4.50. She explains that she's been backpacking through Southeast Asia for 6 weeks and has mastered the art of street food negotiation. She says the key is never paying the marked price at hawker stalls because those prices are tourist trap rates, and that locals never pay full price. I'm Singaporean and I eat here 3 times a week and I always pay $4.50. She insists I'm wrong about my own country. She says Singapore may look developed but it's still part of Southeast Asia, where bargaining is cultural, and that the government can't eliminate centuries of tradition just by posting signs. She argues that Thailand, Vietnam, and Singapore are all ASEAN countries with shared cultural heritage, so the same bargaining rules apply everywhere. She's adamant that she paid $2 for pad thai in Bangkok last month and expects similar negotiations here. I explain Singapore has fixed pricing laws, health department regulations, and that hawker center prices are actually subsidized by the government. She dismisses this as government propaganda. She finally pays $4.50 but spends the next 10 minutes eating her chicken rice while explaining to nearby tables that they're all overpaying. A Chinese uncle at the next table quietly tells her to please eat faster and leave. I'm a cafe owner in Melbourne when an American man orders a flat white. The price is $5.20. He hands me $3.50 and says, "Let's call it even." I tell him the price is $5.20. He argues that Australia is part of the developing Asia-Pacific region, and that coffee is a commodity crop, so prices should be negotiable like they are in coffee-producing countries. I explain that Australia is a developed country with fixed retail prices and a $24 minimum wage, which affects coffee prices. He counters that he haggled for coffee in Colombia last year, and that if it works in the country that grows the beans, it should work everywhere coffee is sold. He's genuinely confused why the supply chain location matters for negotiation. He offers $4 as a compromise. I tell him no. He explains that he's being generous because $4 is what he'd pay in Seattle, and that charging more than Seattle prices is exploiting foreign customers. He says Australian coffee culture is derivative of Italian traditions, and that Italians love negotiating, so I'm betraying my cultural root. I'm Australian-born Chinese, and we don't negotiate coffee prices. He eventually pays $5.20 but makes a show of putting exactly 0 coins in the tip jar while maintaining eye contact, like he's teaching me a lesson about inflexible pricing. I'm a train conductor in Germany checking tickets on a regional train from Munich to Salzburg. An American man boards without a ticket. I tell him he needs to buy one now for €35. He offers €20. I explain German rail tickets are non-negotiable and priced by federal transportation regulations. He scoffs and says that's exactly what he expected from a state-run system, that privatization would introduce pricing competition, and that DB is a monopoly that exploits captive customers. I explain DB is partially privatized but operates under government regulation, and that ticket prices are set by zones and distance, not negotiation. He argues that he's traveled extensively in India where train prices are always negotiable, especially with conductors, and that Germany should adopt more flexible pricing models. I tell him Germany isn't India and we have different systems. He says both countries have extensive rail networks, so the economic principles should be similar. He offers €25 and says he's being reasonable. I tell him the ticket is €35 or he pays a €60 fine at the next stop. He pays €35 but spends the rest of the ride loudly telling other passengers that German efficiency is a myth because efficient markets require price flexibility. A German grandmother nearby tells him to be quiet. He assumes she's agreeing with him. I'm a porter at a hotel in Seoul when an American guest asks me to carry 3 bags to his room. Our hotel doesn't have a fixed porter fee because tipping culture in Korea is different, but tips aren't expected. After I deliver his bags, he hands me 5,000 won and says, "That's about $4, which is generous for Asia." I thank him politely but don't say what I'm thinking. He then asks if I wanted more and seems proud of himself for being willing to negotiate. I tell him the tip was fine and not expected. He launches into an explanation about how he researched Asian tipping culture and learned that negotiations are part of service industry customs, and that offering a fair rate upfront prevents awkwardness. He says he's glad Korea is part of Asia's bargaining culture zone because it makes transactions more honest than America's hidden fee culture. I'm Korean and tipping barely exists here and nobody negotiates service fees. He continues, saying he appreciates that Seoul combines Asian negotiation culture with modern infrastructure, which gives him the best of both worlds. He asks if 5,000 won is the standard rate or if I usually negotiate for more. I tell him most guests don't tip at all and we don't negotiate. He looks confused and says that contradicts his research blog about Korean service culture. I just nod and leave. His wife apologizes later and slips me another 10,000 won, whispering that he's been like this since Japan. I'm a ticket seller at a Canal boat tour company in Bruges when an American tourist approaches. Our 1-hour tour costs €15. She offers €8. I tell her the price is fixed at €15. She argues that Belgium is a small country squeezed between larger economies, which means it should be hungry for tourist revenue and willing to negotiate. I explain Belgian tourism is doing fine and our prices are standard. She insists that Bruges is a medieval city, and that medieval markets were all about haggling, so I'm ignoring historical precedent. She says she visited a medieval fair in Pennsylvania where everything was negotiable, so Bruges should operate the same way. I tell her Belgium in 2024 is not medieval Europe and definitely not Pennsylvania. She switches tactics, arguing that the EU has open market principles, and that price competition should mean negotiation is encouraged. She offers €10 as a compromise, saying that's still more than she'd pay for a similar tour in Prague. I tell her we're not Prague and the price is €15. She says the Canal tour is probably identical to Amsterdam's, so we should match Amsterdam prices minus a discount since Bruges is less famous. I'm Belgian and I'm in Bruges and I have no idea what Amsterdam charges and it doesn't matter. She finally pays €15 but tells me Belgium is behind the curve on customer-centric pricing strategies. The Dutch couple behind her in line catches my eye and we share a look of complete exhaustion. I run a small bookstore in Edinburgh when an American woman brings a novel to the counter. The price is £9.99, printed on the back cover by the publisher. She sets it down and says, "I'll give you £7, I tell her the price is £9.99. She looks at me like I've insulted her intelligence. She explains that she's a small business owner in Oregon and understands retail margins, that bookstores typically mark up products 40%, which means I'm paying about £6 wholesale, so £7 gives me a healthy profit. I tell her the price is set by the publisher and I can't change it. She argues that's an excuse, that I'm the retailer so I control the final price, and that publishers can't dictate terms to independent bookstores because that would be price fixing. She's wrong about how book pricing works in the UK, but she won't let me explain. She insists that her willingness to negotiate proves she respects me as a businesswoman, whereas paying sticker price would be treating me like a vending machine. She says she's trying to engage in authentic commerce, and I'm refusing. I tell her for the third time that the price is £9.99. She finally pays but tells me I should reconsider my pricing strategy if I want to compete with Amazon. She leaves. The Scottish man who's been waiting behind her steps up, buys 2 books at full price without comment, and says to me quietly, "Americans, eh?" I just nod. Some days this job is exhausting.